Hello there and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Ole Brøgger, and if you're new here, I really hope I will earn your subscription today. In this video, I want to show you how I will make some dungeon tiles. I already did that, but they're perfect and they are suitable for certain scenarios. But I want some more city-like tiles like roads and some sewers. I came up with this design. I designed this jig and cut it out on my laser, and I'm going to use this to build some new dungeon tiles. And they will look like this. So why don't we get started? First, I went into Inkscape, and the thought about this design was that the jig should handle two things. I wanted to support the Proxon and a handheld foam cutter, and I wanted it to be able to design some cutouts for sewering, and I wanted it to handle an ordinary 3x3 tile look. The assembly is pretty easy. There's 5 parts. A center part with a big hole so it's easy to pop out the foam and switch it from one side to another. And then there's 4 sides. I glued it together with some super glue and used some activator to make it dry faster. For this project I will use the Army Painter Game Master XPS foam. It already have the right thickness of 10 mm, so it's pretty easy to get started. First I need to make sure that the foam is square. I need at least 1 square corner before I cut it out on my Proxon. On the Proxon I will cut up the tiles in the size of 75 by 75 mm. That's almost 3 by 3 inches. I cut up 2 sheets of foam and it gave me 30 tiles. I brought out my rollers and made cobblestone on one side and some tile-like stones on the other side. I also found another piece of scrap foam so I could make 10 more tiles, so I had 40 in total. And now it was time to use the jig on my Proxon. The jig made it just so much easier to cut out the recesses for the sewer tiles. But the rest of the tiles were actually made on a handheld foam cutter. Some of the tile cutouts were actually glued back in, so I could make some L shapes and T shapes, and even dead ends. Just for fun, I started a timer to see how fast I could make holes for the magnets and cut out the recesses for a sewer tile. And 1 tile were done in less than a minute. I made 14 straights, 8 solids, 10 L-shaped, 4 T-junctions and 2 cross-sections and 2 dead ends. And now it's time for some Mod Podge. For that I needed a rig where I could put the wet elements so they could dry without sticking to anything. I found this piece of scrap foam, some baking paper and some toothpicks. And then it was just painting on the Mod Podge on both sides with an old brush. I used my airbrush to prime it with some Vallejo German Panzer Grey. And now the 40 tiles are dry with the primer, and it's time to make some dry brushing and decorations. For this I tried to use a sponge just to do something different, and it worked okay. I could have dry brushed it with an ordinary brush, but actually I had fun doing it. To pop up the highlights I used this Tundra Base White, and I went back to the ordinary dry brushing. As a wash, I used this dark tone from Army Painter and I mixed it up with the Speed Paint Absolution Green. This gave me a brown-green wet look for the sewer tiles. I used some oak brown for the bottom of the sewer and some cultist rope to put in some green tones as well. Now to put in some sand and other kinds of stuff to make it very dirty and green, and I even printed out some skeletons to make it more nasty. It's all decorated, I just need to paint all the 3D printed parts. There was some rats, some corpses and skeletons. I bought this resin on Amazon and it's UV sensitive, so you just hit it with a UV light. We also need some tape for the edges so it won't run out, and of course gloves. When you're working with resin, it's very important to wear gloves and even a respirator, safety glasses, because it's very toxic and you can get allergic reactions and other skin diseases. To make sure the resin would cure complete, I used my cure station from my 3D printer and it worked perfectly. When this resin was curing, it smelled awful. I think the fumes were very toxic, so I had to ventilate the room and wear a respirator while using it. The resin cured up totally clear, and I really like the look of it, but it doesn't work for me in the sewers. So I had to do something, and I got this still water from AK, which I mixed with some speed paints. I used the hardened leather and the camo cloak, and it worked so perfectly. It gave me this very dirty sewer look that I was hoping for. When I started to peel off the tape, I also peeled off the Mod Podge and paint, and that was not the purpose of this. I had to fix that later, but now I had to install the magnets, and I used one of my old tiles to make the polarity correct, and then was just using the hot glue gun and put them in. All magnets are installed, and now it's time to make a ton of dots. I use this tan, sienna and chocolate brown to make a lot of dots for the cobblestone on the other side of the tiles. I used the dungeon base to dry brush all tiles. And to finish it off, I used this strong tone to give it a more dirty look. Yes, we are done. We have sewers and we have some city tiles on the other side. Why don't we have a look at how this would look in a playable scenario? Thank you so much for watching this to the end. I really appreciate you being here. If you haven't subscribed, liked, please do so. It means a lot to me. And I will see you soon. Maybe we are going to make some walls for this sewer. Goodbye for now.